G'day everyone, it's Rob here from the Doctor Who Show. Welcome to Don't Read the Comments, a podcast where I do exactly what it says not to do on the box, and I go and read the comments on various articles and posts from around the internet talking about things relating to Doctor Who. In today's episode, I want to talk about a piece that's been going around on various UK news websites and in newspapers, I believe, actual print newspapers, remember those kids? That says Electric Entertainment, which is a independent US production company, has interest in making Doctor Who, and they're in talks with ... David Tennant. Now, before I get to some comments on what people think of David Tennant returning to Doctor Who, I'll just say that the founder of Electric Entertainment, Dean Devlin, a month or two back, when the tender was becoming news, made a post of him, looked very AI generated, him in the TARDIS at the console and sort of making a play for, that they'd put their hat in the ring back then. So Electric Entertainment has linked themselves to tendering for Doctor Who in the past, the very recent past. And I don't think it would take much for someone who wanted to start a rumour to say that Electric Entertainment is in talks. Someone who doesn't quite realise the tender process hasn't actually started yet, but who is switched on enough to have seen that post from Dean Devlin and put 2 and 2 together and made 5 and thought, well, this will sound convincing. But I think what is less convincing is tying in David Tennant. And I think if we dive over to the Gallifrey subreddit on Reddit and just read a few of these comments, or maybe more than a few, we'll see what the public sentiment is about David Tennant possibly being involved with Doctor Who again. Doctor Who fans 789 I Whim, there's a username for you. I love David Tennant. He's the absolute best. Bringing him back, though, is the worst possible outcome of this tender process I can imagine. Screams laziness and zero new ideas to move the show forward. Taralassian the Praxic, good lord, these usernames. I'd be very happy to see them bring Tennant back as a consultant / producer / etc. Oh, there's a good role, the etc. role. Hell, even bringing him back specifically as the 14th Doctor to play a supporting role in an episode or two would be fine by me. But as much as I love him, putting him centre stage again just feeds the idea that the show is running on empty and probably won't be a good idea in the long run. And I'll just stop there and say, yes, out of all these comments, and I'm sure you already get the feeling that they're all going to be quite negative about bringing Tennant back, the idea of having the 14th Doctor back in some way and seeing him as a bit more than just a guy with his feet up in an English garden might be a good thing, especially if, I don't know, they kill off the character or do something quite dramatic with it, just to tie off that loose end of the bi-regeneration, and we just can have closure on that Doctor, that spin-off incarnation died saving the universe or something grand like that, but then it's tied off forever and we're not going back to it ever again. Genealogy Curator says, this sounds like the proposal to bring back Tom Baker for the 1996 TV movie. That idea was shot down. So should this one. Sheep and Lambs says, I would rather they cancel the show than bring Tennant back again. Video Kid says, we need to not bring Tennant back for a good long while. He's had his time, twice. On both occasions, his regeneration was written in a way that allowed a version of him to survive and get a happy ending that had been denied to any other Doctor, and on the second occasion, it was after they made a point about the rules of regeneration evolving, but that luxury wasn't afforded to either his predecessor or successor. Bringing him back again would just cement the idea that he's the only modern Doctor worth a damn and that his take is the definitive one, which to me does a disservice to anyone else. There's a certain bittersweetness in the finality to me, and he's already circumvented that twice. And look, I agree 100% with Video Kid, so I do wonder why they began their piece, we need to not bring Tennant back for a good long while. I think what Video Kid wants is to not bring Tennant back at all, based on what they said subsequently in that comment. Chucky in the Attic says, I love Tennant in his time, but for the ever-loving hell of everything, please don't bring him back again. Ladderad6308 says, they literally tried using Tennant to renew interest 3 years ago, and it didn't work. And that's a really great point, which I think gets swept under the carpet a bit, because the 60th specials came along, they've recast Tennant, yay, and they didn't really set the world on fire, did they? There was this sort of anticipation that RTD's back, Tennant's back, oh my god, happy days are here again. And it didn't really happen, did it? I mean, things went downhill after Shooty appeared, and there were people who didn't want to accept him as the Doctor and all of that, yada, yada, yada. But you would think RTD initially coming back with Tennant would have really kick-started something. The 60th anniversary, surely that would have kick-started something. And there was a bit of a bump, yeah. But in the end, it didn't really do what I think it was intended to do. And I think, given everything that happened subsequently, people have already forgotten that sort of part. You know, that Tennant came in for these 3 stories and not a lot happened. Every Good Name Is Gone says, Jesus Christ, stop trying to bring back popular old doctors to, quotation marks, revitalise the show. Look forward, not backward. Start fresh. Couldn't agree more with that. Lycan Indaris says, bringing Tennant back yet again would absolutely kill the show. Oh sure, we might get a few years of entertainment with him in the role again, but it would be proof that he is the show, and without him they might as well not bother making it. It would virtually guarantee a cancellation when he inevitably decided to leave again. Or, failing that, we'd see an ever-increasingly geriatric Tennant getting wheeled out every year until he can't physically stand anymore. Yep, very true. And I'll end on this one. Rybos1 says, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that the guy who announced his intention to revive Doctor Who on Facebook with a frankly hilarious AI slop video featuring himself in the TARDIS probably isn't going to actually make it happen. That's a good place to end, and it brings me back to what I was saying at the start, that this guy, Dean Devlin, and his company, Electric Entertainment, I mean household name, right, is highly, highly unlikely to do anything with Doctor Who. And I think, at least in terms of that video that Devlin put out, there was some real self-promotion there. Whether this new rumour dropped into the press comes through Devlin, or it's someone who has seen the Devlin thing and is trying to make something out of nothing using that as the basis, and Devlin has jumped in actually and said, oh look, no, we're not in talks, you know, although we'd like to be, sort of thing. It's a bit up in the air as to whether that came from Devlin or a third party, and Devlin is the innocent party this time around. But however you slice and dice it, I think Rybos1, you're quite on the money. Electric Entertainment isn't going to get Doctor Who. They aren't in talks with the BBC, and they certainly aren't going to use David Tennant to come back to the show in the lead role. But I think this was an enlightening episode, just to remind us all that feeling toward David Tennant, even from people who really like David Tennant as a person or who enjoyed his era back in, 2006 to 2009 or 10 or whatever the hell it was, really don't want to see him back. In some ways didn't even need him back for the 60th. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Either on rumours about the tender or Electric Entertainment's bid for a bit of publicity, or anything you like. What do you think about David Tennant coming back to the role? Of course he's not coming back to the role. Let us know through all the usual avenues. And until next time on the Doctor Who show, which will be a List Makers episode on the 23rd of August, I've been Rob, and I'll catch you next time.